I wanted to set the precedent for the headspace we are all in now. Although the boy's grades have shown an impressive span of attention, they have deceived us all. The prowess of the youngling prompted his further accomplishments, but to what end? Another piece of paper to add to the stack, which, in all truthfulness, was all he was giving them in exchange. I want to say it was sometime around late 2018 that he yearned for purpose outside of the 8.5 by 11 boxes he was comfortable with. But his life went on as before, and his prestige got him higher and higher in a world that mattered to others. With the combined forces of boredom in his mind and spears at his gut, he climbed higher, faster, farther, pushing the bounds of the very paper he wrote on. When the pandemic hit, however, his world stood still. Some might say he took full advantage of this still life, progressing more intensely and more brilliantly than ever before. But in order for someone to play with fire, they cannot know its danger. Emerging victoriously, the boy in red had boosted himself high and mighty, nearly tall enough to see his own alpine home from where he stood, unaided by the sylvan meadows around him. He knew who he was, where he belonged, and what he thought he had to do to get there. The boy figured for his own trophy case that he would push the bounds of what was possible one more time, simply to reign superior over the hills he would never again have to traipse through. It wasn't his first mistake, but it is the most easily identifiable in his entire story. While COVID still existed, surely it could not breach the thick into the vernacularly gated community in which he attended school. Clearly, the virus was gone. The county was still posting infection numbers, masks were still required, and quarantines were monitored seriously, but surely the incubus was driven out of town enough for regular school to ensue. Regular school? School was never regular in my eyes, but this transition only churned what would have already been the most difficult year. Being encouraged by his teachers to take as many AP classes in his senior year as he had in the past 2 years combined surely wasn't a mistake, as the great pause unpaused, right? Right? I'll let you in on a little secret. It definitely was. But he pushed onward, and he held every block high, continuing to push the boundaries of that box. But adversity, mother of obstacle, was just as tired of the Ouroboros as he was. When his eyes were busy discerning the contents of the horizon, the balance broke. Half of his brain went unanswered, waltzing into the night. One of his hands cracked under the relentless pressure that forged diamonds, and the half of him that mattered to everyone he knew seemed unexcusedly absent and unable to help him climb out of the very pit he had helped others dig him into. You're probably thinking, that's really depressing. I was thinking that for a while too. I was imagining it would get better, that he would pull himself up by the bootstraps some Sunday night like he had done so many times in the previous 4.5 years, but salvation has yet to come. Lo and behold, as your thoughts never deceive. Think back to that fun little A-push class you took last year. Do you remember what ended the Roaring Twenties? Debt. The illusion of perfection, a fall from the towers of grace to the disappointments of reality, a crash, if you will, followed by none other than what can only be described as the Great Depression. Has anyone stopped to ask why the boy in red gets a little bit redder every time he's forced to pull a late night to obtain some archaic knowledge of being that will fail to service him beyond May 2022? Telling you that the all-nighters physically couldn't be pulled by me because my palms had been singed from trying to carry the neutron star density of information you confront me with on the daily clearly wasn't enough, was it? Some of us like asking questions, and regardless of what you convince yourself you believe in, refusing to answer is just as disrespectful as any of the other transgressions that flood the halls of faux yellow in which paper goes to die. If I cared to read between the lines, don't you think I would? If I actually wanted to know whether or not Hamlet feigned madness or welcomed it, then I wouldn't relate to him as much as I do right now. My future was stolen because the thief, or perhaps thieves, selfishly saw a future of their own design that just so happened to bulldoze the best outcome. Once a star student, a pearl shapened in the disgusting maws of a clam, in an even dirtier riverbed, now reduced, reused, recycled to nothing but himself. The boy in red, if you could still call him that, didn't know who he was anymore. If James Victor was smart, if James Victor was a beacon of scholarly prowess, what more of him mattered to his peers, to his frontistery, to his own person? If the characteristic by which a man is defined ceases to exist and he finds himself structurally unemployed, adrift in the world, then by our eyes that man ceases to exist too. And, well, if that's true, then I regret to inform you that James Victor is dead.